In an undeclared confrontation, Erdogan is trying to pull the rug out from under Trump's feet. A series of understandings have emerged, especially in recent days in Syria, between the Russian, American and Turkish sides. Also, on the Libyan side or on Libyan soil, there have been understandings, but in reality, there are also political differences between Trump and Erdogan. And here we are talking about Ukraine. You know very well that Trump is trying or has tried to exploit the Russian-Ukrainian war in order to seize the minerals that Ukraine possesses. He blackmailed Ukraine by claiming that he is the one who can stop the Russian war on Ukraine, otherwise Ukraine will be left on its own. In fact, he went even further, coveting all of Ukraine's wealth and minerals. On the other hand, we know that Erdogan has understandings with Zelensky and with Ukraine. We also know that Erdogan, Turkey, had supplied Ukraine with a range of weapons, including drones. We also know that Ukraine had provided funding for the technical side of the stealth project, specifically the 6th generation stealth aircraft, which Turkey is aiming to manufacture. This is particularly relevant because Turkey was still undecided about the engine to be used in the aircraft. So Ukraine was the solution, providing Turkey with an engine. Ukraine had previously made an agreement with China to sell it for the Chinese 6th generation fighter jet. But the Turkish-Ukrainian understandings allowed Turkey to benefit. What is happening today between Erdogan and Trump regarding Ukraine? Let's look at this news. A Turkish official says that the talks between Ukraine and Russia were more positive than expected. Erdogan brought both Ukraine and Russia together, and he invited them for mediation, even for direct negotiations on Turkish soil in Istanbul. All this without inviting America, and without consulting Trump or even informing him at all. Through these negotiations, Erdogan wants to demonstrate that he does not abandon his allies. Just as happened in Azerbaijan, Erdogan stood by the Azerbaijanis or his ally Azerbaijan until the very end. Also in Libya, Erdogan and Turkey stood by the government of national accord until Haftar was defeated and forced to retreat. Until Haftar was driven back and retreated from the capital Tripoli to the Sirte Jufra region. So in this way, Erdogan also wants to win over both Ukraine and Russia, especially since we have talked about a number of operations and agreements between Russia and Turkey, which we will mention at the end or in the second segment of this episode. As for these negotiations, they concluded between the Russian and Ukrainian delegations in Istanbul, where Vladimir Medinsky, the Russian presidential aide and head of the Russian delegation for the negotiations, expressed the delegation's satisfaction with the outcome, indicating the Russian side's readiness to continue communications. This is how Turkey appears. Erdogan demonstrates that no single power can solve problems except the United States, and that Trump's blackmail and arrogance are the only solution. Rather, there is moderation, there is balance, there is a win-win approach as Erdogan wants and as Turkey seeks to promote its reputation in the world. So, in other news, we see this image, a meeting between Zelensky and the Pope for the sake of prayer, for the sake of mediation, and also to win the sympathy of European Christians on the basis that Ukraine is a Christian country and naturally should not be abandoned. So let's move to the map and look at the understandings that have taken place between the United States on one side, Turkey, and also Russia in Syria. And what is the connection of Libya, Gaza, and Israel to these understandings? So we know that Syria got rid of Bashar al-Assad's regime, but not for free. In the red area in the north, Turkey still remained and its interest remained as well. And Russia's withdrawal from Syria, or rather its decision to pull back its military presence and reduce its direct involvement in the ongoing conflict, essentially meant leaving President Bashar al-Assad, who is the head of the Syrian government, and his ruling regime, without the same level of support they previously received. This move resulted in the Syrian regime being left more vulnerable and exposed, placing it increasingly in the hands of various separatist groups operating within the country. Or let's say the Syrian revolution was not free. So if we look at the red area, Turkey, in order to maintain its presence and protect its interests in northern Syria, as we can see here in the red strip, gave up its presence in Libya, as you can see, the red stocks. We know that Turkey was strongly supporting the government of national accord. But after Turkey's interests stabilized with the new Syrian government in northern Syria, and after it trained the separatists who were threatening Turkey's national security, we saw this week that Haftar entered important areas of Tripoli. They also left the Dbeibeh government to either resign or be dismissed. They also left the Libyan people in Tripoli to demand the departure of the Dbeibeh government. So Turkey is vacating its positions or withdrawing from Libya to northern Syria. This is the first understanding, and this is in Turkey's interest. But what is Russia's interest in all of this? As for Russia, its interest, as we can see in green, was to be stationed at the Hmeimim air base and also at the Tartus naval base. It did not intervene to save or prevent the revolutionaries from expelling and defeating the Syrian regime. And it remained in its positions. In exchange for what? In exchange for Turkey leaving Libya to it? We know that the Russian presence, the Russian military presence is through Wagner. So, Turkey leaving Libya to Haftar, that is, to Wagner, which means to Russia. America also benefited and did not intervene in Libya, nor did it directly support either the government of national accord, the Dbeibeh government, or any side. It allowed Russia to enter Libya, at least temporarily. In exchange for what? In exchange for Russia, that is specifically Russian Wagner forces and Haftar, who also works in alliance with Russia, leaving. And here, as shown in blue, America allows the displacement of Palestinians from Gaza to Libya, or about 1 million Palestinians to be displaced to Libya, after both Egypt and Jordan refused to receive or relocate Palestinians to their countries. And here we see this recent news report from NBC News stating that Trump and the Trump administration are officially working to relocate 1 million Palestinians to Libya. So, dear viewers, with this, as always, we have reached the end of this episode, and we look forward to seeing you in a future episode, God willing.